Today's phenomenal interview is with Dan Borrero. Dan is a guy with a lot of experience. He started in real estate investing in 1989. Can you believe that? 1989. So he definitely knows a thing or two. So I really, really loved this interview. He talks about his career, what he's done, all the stuff, and a lot of stuff that he's learned. So he shares that with us. So make sure if you're going to watch one episode of Wrestling with Real Estate, that this is the one, because there's a lot you can learn from this one. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel. Go to the WWRE podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a review if you think it's worthy. And I would love to speak to you. If you're interested in real estate and you want to learn more, or you're an experienced investor and you just want to chat real estate, I would love to set up time and have a call with you guys. So if there's going to be a link in the description below, if you go there and sign up, or if you go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com, there's going to be a sign up sheet there as well. But I would love to get to know you, see if there's any way I can help you. But before that, enjoy today's phenomenal, and I mean phenomenal, interview with Dan Borrero.
Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we have Dan Borrero with us. Hey Dan, how's it going, man?
How are you, Barry? Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm fantastic, man. I'm excited to get this interview going. We had a great call the other night when we spoke on the phone. I don't know how long we spoke for.
Oh, we were on the phone a while, yeah.
Dan's a great guy, and this is going to be an awesome episode, I can already tell. So before that, do you want to give us an idea about your background and kind of what you've been up to and what your focus is right now?
Yeah, so I'm Dan Borrero, USA Land Ventures. I've been a real estate investor since 1989. I've pretty much done it all. I've built from the ground up. I've flipped thousands and thousands of just vacant land, as well as a couple of thousand fix and flips as well. But what I'm most proud of is essentially all the long-term holds that we've held on to, and how we've actually used the flipping side of the business to generate the cash for the long-term hold purchases and acquisitions.
That's cool.
If that helps you any.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just a question that strikes me then when you said 1989 is, how do you have such still, because speaking to you on the phone, it's apparent your passion and your love for real estate is so clear for everyone to see. I think everyone will see it in the interview today. Where does that passion and drive and love for it come from, you think, still after?
I think the passion is, first of all, the wanting and every morning to get up and work, right? That's the first thing, right? The second thing is, I love what I do, and as a result of me loving what I do, I got can't see all the degrees up there, but there's 3 degrees up there, 1 more I'm going to be putting up, and that's what afforded me the opportunity to pay for every single one of those degrees. And those degrees are only one of them is mine. The rest belong to my kids. And that's what it's afforded me to, have them graduate with absolutely no student debt, right? And that's what makes me feel rich. So when I walk into my home office, which is where I'm in now, that's the first thing I look at when I walk in. And that gives me the drive. That gives me the, although I don't really need it, because that's just in my DNA. But that does help, if that helps you any.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, being able to, it's one thing to provide for us and improve our lives, right? But to, my son's improve the life of other people around us is just.
Right, and you see and you watch your kids grow, and you watch your kids grow with all the benefits that you are unable to have. Not that my parents didn't try, of course, but there was a different era, different situation. They did the best that they could, and they did a wonderful job. There was 8 of us, and we all have our degrees, right? I never knew what it was to go without food, or at one point in my younger years we were poor, but I didn't know I was poor. The house was always clean. There was, I went to school with clean clothes. I always had, whatever school supplies I needed. But thinking back as an adult, you realize now how much your parents struggled to provide that for you, you know. So my success, I got to tell you, started from, you know, my grandparents, what they instilled into my parents, and then what my parents instilled to us, and the way they all lived their lives. So my success comes from generations back, not just it just didn't happen today like this. If you know, it's as a result of what everybody else sacrificed prior to me.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool. You said, you know, it's in your DNA. I'm guessing that's where it comes from, right? Does that work ethic and that motivation come from your family?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We're all hard workers, and my parents wouldn't accept anything less. You know, it's not about moping around if you had a bad day, or you did, you know, you had a bad deal, or if you were in school and you got a bad grade, who cares? Get up and do it again.
Yeah.
You know, no excuses. We weren't allowed any excuses, if that helps you any.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
But going back to 1989, you said that's when you started investing in real estate, right? 1989.
Yes.
What
Yes.
was the real estate world like? Because I imagine it was a completely different landscape to what it is now, right? What was
You
it
know,
back in 18?
it's so funny, Barry. It's I hear people complaining because the interest rates may, you know, somebody was just telling me a couple of weeks ago, 6.5% on a multifamily deal, and they're only coming out with 15%, right? And I'm looking at them. I said, what are you crazy? 6% after your tax implications. What is that really like? 3.5, 3.75. I says my first deal was over 18%, and I could tell you it was Greenpoint Savings Bank. It was 73 Adelphi Street, and I actually bought the property from Greenpoint Savings Bank. It was my first deal. Was a foreclosure. I knew absolutely nothing how to do it or how they were robbing me, and I had to use all of their closing agents, their attorneys, their title company, everything, and I got robbed all the way across the board, including 3 points for the loan at 18%.
So you had to pay 3 points up front. So for those
Yes,
people, 3% of the loan amount, for those people who don't have 3 points,
that's right.
3% of the loan amount up front.
That's right.
And an 18% interest rate.
That's right.
You made
So
them.
these, yeah, you know, these interest rates today are like, to me, it's like free money. I'm like, are you kidding me? Why would you ever complain? You know.
How are you able to make a deal work at an 18% interest rate then? There's got to be some big margins there, right?
Um, it really wasn't. I quickly learned that the best time to buy real estate is when the economy is doing horrible because the interest rates are high, the value of the property is low, and then when the economy gets better, the value goes up, and that's when you refinance. So the burr system that everyone's referring to today, I was doing that 31 years ago. There just wasn't a name for it. And it was just all about calculating when to do that refinancing and get your renovations done. And at the time, you know, we didn't have the money to do it. It was actually my father, my brother, and I, and we would use our bare hands. That's how we got it done.
Wow, that's crazy. How would you find a deal at night? Because there was obviously no internet, but there was agents and stuff, right? But
It was agents. It was all on the newspaper. It was, you know, driving around. We were driving for dollars, what's called today, and there wasn't a name for it back then, you know. So the first deal that I actually bought was 73 Adelphi, and I happened to be walking up the street and saw the sign. I called up the agent. The agent said to me, you know, it'd be great if we could get in. If I remember correctly, they were asking like 130, 120. It's around there. And I said, well, I could get it. He goes, well, good luck. He says, you're going to have to make an offer without getting in because the tenants won't let us in. They refuse to let us in. Just so happens I grew up in the neighborhood and I actually knew the people that were there. So I went and knocked on the door. I told them why I was there. They let me in. I saw the whole house. I came back down and I figured, and again, remember, I knew nothing about the business. There weren't the publications that we have today. There was no internet. There was no podcasts. There was no YouTube channel. So I used my business aptitude and experience, which it wasn't much at the time. And I figured, well, if no one else could get in, and he's telling me I got to place a bid based on just the outside, and everyone's probably scared to come into the neighborhood because it wasn't one of the nicest neighborhoods at the time. Like, it wasn't the neighborhood it is today. I gave him a low bid offer, and they took it. It was $72,000.
Wow. And what was that property worth, do you think? 120, or was it worth more than 120?
It was probably worth about 100 at the time.
Okay.
It wasn't worth 120, 130. But it's funny. I won't sell the property. I still own the property. It's a 2-family building. Generates about almost $8,000 in rent roll per month, because it's in the middle of it's in the heart of Fort Greene, Brooklyn, which is a very desirable area right now. It's actually not far from the Barclays Center, which has been in the news lately because of all the protests going on in New York.
Okay.
But it generates almost $8,000 a month, and I've probably gotten renovations into the building about 200 grand. So you're looking at 275 over all the years that I've owned it. It's a fabulous return. But the funny part is I just got an offer 6 months ago without there even being a sign on the property for $2.4 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you still won't sell it?
Why would I? It's an emotional keep, to be honest with you. So probably that's the main reason why. That's where it all started. Right.
Yeah.
So I won't sell it now.
That's interesting. With how much did you have to put down? What was like? How was it hard to get a loan there as well?
We at the time. So I had a retail store at the time, so it was difficult to show the actual amount of money we would make.
Yeah.
And it was during a bad recession where a lot of people had walked away from the properties, similar to what happened in 2008. So the banks were extremely they were really tight with their lending policies. So Greenpoint Savings Bank, they were the only bank in town that you could get a loan without any income verification based on the property as well as your credit score, but you had to put 35% down. So everything was 35% down. You had to have credit score over 750, and they used their own appraisers. They didn't use outside appraisers. So there's usually a 10% margin. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it on the appraisal. So if you have 2 appraisers coming in, they should never be more than 10% off, right? From the high end to the low end. They would always come down on the lower end of that 10%. So which would also force you to come up with another 3 to 5% on the down payment. So it was extremely difficult, but it was something that we knew we wanted to do, and we did it. You manage, you do what you have to do. You live below your means and you make it happen. That's essentially what it all comes down to.
Yeah, but it sounds so. Going back before that deal, the first deal that you bought, you said you had a grocery store. Were you like a businessman? What was your background before that?
So my dad had a grocery store since I was the age of 10 years old. And so when I went away to school and I came back with all these aspirations, right? And you come with all these unrealistic goals and ideas, right? You're gonna save the world, So, but you quickly learn the economy quickly gives you a slap in the face and tells you, hold up, buddy, right? So I ended up opening up my first business in 1985, which was a video store. I knew absolutely nothing about the video business. That grew into beeper service. I'm not sure if even your guests would even know what a beeper is.
I know what a beeper is, yeah.
Yeah. So I had at one point I had over 140, 160 beeper subscribers that would come and pay me on a monthly basis. And then from that, we grew into putting out ATM machines. When they first came out, we were putting ATM machines in different stores, filling them up ourselves, and giving the store owner 75 cents from every transaction. We were charging $3 a transaction. That was like loan sharking. That was probably one of the best businesses we ever been in. And then in addition to that, we opened up laundromats. We had 2 laundromats. So it was 7 days a week, 12-hour days. It was nonstop. It was extremely dangerous because we were carrying a lot of cash all the time for the machines. And all simultaneously, we kept buying buildings. We kept buying buildings in the area that we were concentrating in for our retail stores. And then eventually got to the point where, the retail was actually hurting us because we were spending so much time with retail, and then we were but it was hurting us. So we didn't have the time to go after the real dollars, which was the real estate side, especially the land business. The land business was an incredible business, still is. Um, so we got rid of the retail stores, and that's when we went strictly into real estate.
When you say we, is that you and your dad, you and your brother?
My dad and my brother, but primarily my brother David and I at the moment. Yes, yeah.
Wow, that's cool. And he's still involved in the business to this day?
My dad, he's 80 years old. He likes to be involved with the business. Yeah. So we pick him up, and I'll take him to job sites, and I'll get, I said, well, make sure this guy gets this done, and they hate when he's there because he wants to be hands on, and he has very low patience. Still yells at people at 80 years old. So yeah. So when I want to bother a contractor, as punishment, I'll put my father on a job. I'll pick him up in the morning and say, stay here for 3 hours. I'll be back for you. That's the punishment. You got to deal with my father.
That's really cool. That's really cool. You said that about land, right? For me, I'm no understanding. I know what it is. You buy a piece of land, and then hopefully you either build on it or you sell it for more, and you've got to have that understanding. But talk a little bit about how land investing works, right? I've never interviewed anyone about land investing, and you've said
really,
no. It's
so the land business is a great business. The land business, once you have the wheel in place and once you have the knowledge in place, mm-hmm. It's very easy to replicate, to continue to do it over and over again. So, we concentrate in the land business. I started in Brooklyn, New York, but then the property values got so out of hand that the initial purchase price, the acquisition cost, was way too high, right? So, because now in New York, it's a couple $100,000 minimal for let's say a 40 by 100. Whereas you go to the state of Florida, especially if you go to the northern part, you can pick up properties for 1,000, 2,000. You take the property, you market it differently, and you flip that anywhere between 100% to 1,000% more. And where you develop then your cash flow, and this is the really good part, is where, let's say the property costs you $2,000 and you're selling it for $5,000, right? Person gives you $2,000 deposit, you hold the loan at 10%, and you hold it for what they could afford. So if they need to bring down their payment to $100 a month, then you bring that payment out, let's say 48 months or 60 months, whatever that may be, right? At 10%, now you develop cash flow for the next 60 months from one property, but your initial investment into property, you got back with the actual deposit. So you're really into the property for absolutely nothing. And you develop cash flow. In our case, we have well over 100, 150 notes that we hold that way. So it's an incredible cash flow per month.
But then you can't just go out and buy any piece of land, right? And as you're investing in.
Well, there's criteria, right? So you look for. We don't buy anything that's wet or flood zone, and make sure everything is near utility where they don't have to pay for utility companies to bring the electric to the telephone poles because it's within that scope. You want to buy in areas where it has a probability of increasing in value, but it's still relatively cheap, where you could sell to a larger mass amount of people because of the price point. You want to make sure, one of the things we do is we always look at the Department of Transportation websites, and you figure out what roads are getting funded to be expanded. And then you from that gives you an indication, okay, there's a reason why they're expanding. What's the reason why they're expanding? And then when you figure that out, then you know exactly where to buy in relation to those expansions.
Wow, that's so interesting. And then who do you sell it to?
We sell it to other investors, primarily other investors. Sometimes, I'm not going to kid you, like there's an area called Point Siena, right outside of Kissimmee, Florida. We were buying there in 2008, buildable lots with water and sewer access. We were buying those at $3,000, $2,500. held on to them for about 6 years and sold them. We sold about 150 lots to 3 different developers at an average price of about 28,000.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
That's pretty good. But then the whole
yeah.
time, so you have with something like that, you have to understand that you're not going to be cash flowing or making. It's actually probably costing you money, right? With taxes, do you pay taxes?
Taxes are very minimal, less than $100 usually, or 100 and change at the most per lot.
Uh-huh.
But you remember, you have the cash flow from the mortgages coming in every
Right.
month.
But I mean, until you sell it, I mean, if you talked about you bought it in 2008 and you had to wait a few years, right? So
Yeah,
but
it wasn't much.
Yeah,
It wasn't
you
much.
have to
You know, it's not a difficult. It's not such a large amount. Well, so it all depends, right? It all depends on your. Everyone's at a different level. Everyone has different risk tolerance. Everyone has a different lifestyle. So it all depends on your lifestyle. And I got into the land business in a place called Cape Coral, Florida, Lee County, which is right outside Fort Myers. And the person who really taught me the land business was a woman named Lucy Quinones. She's still in the business. She just had me on. She started this Monday night program for her real estate agents, where she had me on basically to teach her real estate agents the mentality of a real estate investor, so that maybe they could understand how to sell to a real estate investor like yourself and me, right? Because we think totally different. We don't think like end users, correct?
Yeah.
So, and I got to tell you, to this day, I'm still using many of the tactics that she taught me on how to figure out where to buy and how to buy.
Wow, and are you still buying land today?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm always looking for land. It's the easiest side of this business. It's easier that there's no construction involved. If it sits there, who cares? If there's a fire, who cares? You're not worried about tenants. You're not worried about how hot it is or how cold it is or maintenance. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You know, if I sit on it for 5 years, I don't care. If most of it, I'm out of it within 6 months, 3 to 6 months though. It's very rare that I have a property longer than that.
Interesting.
Unless it's intentional, like the lots that we kept in Point Siena. That was intentional because we knew everything that was growing around it. So to us, it was like, I'm not selling this. So even if I could make 100%, why would we sell it at this point?
Mm-hmm.
We could sell it for so much more later if we just, stay the course, forget that we even have it there, just pay the taxes, and that's it.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, you had a vision, obviously, in mind for when you bought that piece of land. You've got to.
Yeah. Listen, the longer you're in this business, the more you learn. The longer you're in this business, the more you learn as a result of all the mistakes that you made.
Uh-huh.
So we made a lot of mistakes on selling property way too soon. So and to this day, look, I'm in the business 31 years, and if I told you I don't make mistakes, it's a lie. I still make mistakes. Are they mistakes that half the time I shouldn't have made because I just didn't take the time out to think about it? Yeah, probably. But yeah, listen, this is it's any businessman that tells you they never lost money and they're successful, you can tell them Dan Borrero said you're lying.
You can quote Dan on that.
Yeah, that's right.
That's really. Have you ever built on any of these lots then?
We did. We built. I quickly learned it wasn't worth it to me to build because we built 10 houses with my brother-in-law in Florida, and if I had waited 3 more years, because of the increase in value of how quickly the property values were going up, I would have made the same exact amount of money without having to have gone through the financing, without having to have dealing with the contractors or the suppliers and the permits process and the zoning issues and the attorneys. I said to myself, why would I ever do this again? I'll sit back for 3 more years and make just as much money and not do the work.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, no, I don't do that anymore. No.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because I guess by the time you do all that work, right, you buy the land and you do all that work, you're getting close to that 3-year mark anyway, right? By the time you build it.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in do what you know how to do best, and you'll make a whole lot more money. And in that process, The only reason you know how to do it better is because you actually enjoy doing it. If you love the side that you're on, stay in that lane. You'll make so much more money. If that helps you any.
Yeah, 100% it helps. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
So
I hate the building side, and that's why I kind of stay out of it.
okay. So, but you do flips, right? You've done
Love
thousands
the
of
flips. The
Yeah.
flips are easy to do because there's a machine in place already, right? In addition to that, you develop relationships no matter where you go. So you develop your relationships with your contractors, you develop your relationships with your suppliers. Yeah, everybody's on board. So once you have those relationships in place, you just continuously duplicate the process. So we could, in a condo, for instance, assuming it's a major renovations, and then depending on the condo board, how restricted they are as far as working on weekends and how late you could work, the most it would take me, and I'm talking about a total gut 1-bedroom unit, if I'm not out of there in 2.5 weeks, I'm mad.
Wow.
Yeah.
But how do you build those relationships? Because I think, like you said, that is so true. It's key is building relationships with whatever is the contractors, is it agents, is it wholesalers, is it whatever. How have you found, like over the years, the best way to build those relationships?
So this business, in my opinion, it's all about relationships. And in this business, your name is your brand. You shake someone's hand, it doesn't matter if you change your mind later on, you make that deal. Even if you think you're not going to make as much money on it, you don't walk away from that deal, because that particular person that brought you that deal will never bring you another deal, ever. So in this business, in my case, I don't really have to go look out. I don't have to go look for property the way most investors still do. Properties are coming to us on a daily basis. I would tell you, when I look, the reason we don't take most of them is because I look at every property first as why I shouldn't buy it. And if it still makes sense, then I'll do more research on it. But the first thing I do is look at every single reason why I shouldn't buy that property. But we get most of our inventory now from short sale negotiators, title agents that did all the closing work. Now it was a short sale deal and the buyer disappeared, because most of them, I don't have to tell you, they're not real estate investors, and they see this being done on TV and they think it's as easy as it was, right? So they put $500 down. In the interim, it took 9 months to figure, for the asset manager to come down to a number that they could afford or they thought it was worth, and now they disappeared because they bought something else, right? So we will buy out their escrow and we'll jump into the deal, assuming the numbers make sense and it's in the location that we want. We get a lot of calls from bankruptcy attorneys that, the client goes to the attorney. The attorney now wants to put the property into a short sale and slow down the bankruptcy. So they call us, right? And they have their real estate agents that already know that they're going to work with us. And they love us because they know that we're going to work the deal. Doesn't matter if it takes, 2 weeks or if it takes 2 years. As long as the numbers are making sense and everyone is still negotiating with good faith, doesn't matter how many BPOs they do, we're going to make the deal happen as long as the numbers make sense.
Yeah. What's a BPO?
So what happens is, during the course of the negotiations, the longer that the negotiations go on, the value of the property may go up and down. So my number on the contract is a ridiculously low number, right? Because I know it doesn't really matter what's on the contract. What matters is what the asset manager for the bank is from a distance. Usually sometimes they may even be in India, or sometimes they're somewhere in the Midwest. As an asset manager, something in Florida, New York, they have absolutely no knowledge of the landscape in those areas. But the only thing they do know is what the appraiser says it's worth, right? So and that appraisal usually comes in from a real estate broker. So it all goes by what the BPO is, and then I got to sit there and argue with them. Okay, well, yeah, that would be the number if the property was in this condition. So let me show you the real pictures and then let me show you the pictures where he got his comps from, and then this is what the difference is. So you can't expect me to pay, top dollar for a comp where everything is brand new versus me having to put $70,000 into this house now. Doesn't make sense. So sometimes you got to work with the asset manager and educate them a little bit. And then that goes back and forth. And then by the time that all that, okay, well, that's settled, but it's another 3 months. I got to do another BPO. So, so it could be a little challenging, but it's if it's part of the machine already, it doesn't matter. Right.
What are the best ways you've found to make that work? Is it having real pictures of the property, like you mentioned there?
Oh yeah. So you have to have the pictures of the property. You have to be able to get the comps yourself. You have to sometimes, believe it or not, sometimes I even know the person who did the BPO. So I'm able to get on the phone and call them up and I say, it's one of them's name's Gary. Gary, where'd you get your numbers from? Can you explain this to me? Maybe I have this wrong. And if you're right, I won't argue anymore. If you're wrong, I'm going to tell you where you're wrong. And it's not personal. It's just, everybody's, as long as you're talking to people with respect and professional, everybody's willing to talk.
That's interesting. Yeah. How and it was your reputation that got these bankruptcy lawyers?
Yeah, well, because like in one case, we did, we at the time in 2009, we were doing over 200 closings a year. So a lot of the title agents, it's constantly seeing your company name. And I wouldn't go to these things. Everything was done via FedEx and fax machine back then, believe it or not. So eventually, you pick up the phone and I would always forget. I didn't remember names. But I would, they would recognize my voice and they'd say, oh, we did this deal, we did that deal. And then it finally dawned on me, maybe I should start going to these closings and develop a relationship and get, face to face. And then I started telling them, I says, listen, I'll close anything you bring to me as soon as the documentation is ready, as long as the numbers make sense. So if something falls apart, take my card, call me. That's how it all started. Because they saw we work, the paperwork was always done on time. It was always done efficiently. There was no excuses. The money was always there the day before the closing. I never sent it in. I never wired funds in the day of. Everything was always done at least the day before. And that's what they want to work with, right? Who would you rather work with? The person you got to be constantly fighting with to get the paperwork in, or if they didn't sign in a certain place, or they didn't show proof of funds, or they're sending the escrow in 3 days after it was due, or would you rather work with someone who's like really on top of things, makes your life a lot easier, and you can get the files off your desk quicker?
Yeah. How are you guys able to close 200 properties a year? And you said you guys usually weren't in there, right? How does
Barry, it was with about 5 hours a night sleep if we were lucky.
Wow.
If we were lucky.
So what does a day in the life of Dan Borrero look back then? What did a typical day look like back then for you?
Thinking back, I was excited. I was exhausted, but I didn't know I was exhausted until business started to slow down. And then you start to realize, like, wait a minute, I could actually sleep an extra half an hour. Like, wow, that feels good. My kids suffered a lot because I would drive them to practice, and instead of being there encouraging them to do a practice, I was in my car on the phone or doing paperwork. I'd take my files with me because I didn't want to take them. I would lose a half an hour driving back home for 15 minutes to work at my desk for an hour and then come back. So I would stay in the parking lot and do my work there. My brother and I, we were really, I'm not going to kid you, it was grinding it out, but we also knew we didn't know when this was going to end.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's coming that good, the best recommendation I could give you guys is when it's that strong and that good, take every single cent you can off of that table while it's still available, because when it slows down, you could enjoy your life. That's when we start doing our traveling, start fixing up our houses, you're going out to dinner 3 nights a week. But when we're making the money, you don't have time to spend it, because it's that busy. I'm not going to lie to you. It was exciting. It was like, it was moving, boy. It's an adrenaline rush. It's what it was.
That's crazy. That's like nearly 20 closing, a little over under 20 closing nearly every other day or something like
It was
that, right?
insanity. And that's not including the land deals.
Uh-huh.
That's not include the land deals is a separate company. That's a separate company. It was insanity. Insanity.
How do you buy 200 properties a year? I'm guessing how do you finance it? Where does that money come from? I'm guessing you guys are not paying for it yourself.
So at the time, believe it or not, we just had this conversation before this about money.
Yeah.
If I had another $2 to $3 million, I could have flipped that to $20 million in a year. My problem was nobody would lend us money because it was a recession, right? Everybody was scared of the real estate business. So, thank God, we had been very well prepared, and all the properties we did buy with the land money when we were selling just land were cash flowing because we had very low mortgages on them by that time. Some of them were actually already paid off for. And we had been living below our means for so many years. It wasn't very expensive to maintain our homes, our personal homes, right? For instance, I live in the same home for the past 24 years. So can I have bought a bigger house in 24 years? Absolutely. Did I? No, because that's just not who we are, my wife and I, right? So, because of that, my personal expenses are very low. So that afforded me the opportunity to save and have a large stockpile of cash. And the other thing was, and I don't recommend this for everyone, but I could tell you what we did. I took home equity line. My brother and I took home equity lines against our personal homes, and that's the cheapest money you could get out there. You're not paying for origination costs. You're not paying for an appraisal. You're not paying for doc fees. You're not paying for nothing. They even pay for the recording fees and the mortgage taxes. So, but as long as you leave it open for 2 years, and with most banks, and so you're looking at the time we were getting loans anywhere between 2% and 4%, and you're not even paying the interest on it if you're not using it. So whenever we needed additional cash, we would tap into our home equity lines. That's basically how we would do it. And then it got to the point where then people started throwing people see your success and now they want to throw money at you. But then it gets to the point where you become selective with who you want to work with as far as the money is concerned, at what interest rate. At that point, you could dictate to them what you want to pay. They don't dictate to you what you want to pay.
That's the thing, because you have that reputation at that point, and you don't. You have right. People, right? Yeah, that's
exactly. It's all about relationships.
Huh. But you guys, so it's interesting. I always hear that, talk about, I wish I was back in 2008, 2009 so I can buy everything, right? But I've heard plenty of people that said that back then was that it was scary to buy, right? It's easy to now say, hey, yes, I would have bought up everything and I would have done.
You know what, Barry? It's so funny. I used to tell everyone, and my brother and I would come back and tell everybody, family members, friends, listen, just buy it. Even if you sat on it for a year and did nothing, you're going to make money. Just buy it. Everyone thinks we're crazy. So what I would tell people is that the American population were not looking at the individual trees in the forest. They just saw the forest. Whereas the foreigners, the Germans, the South Americans especially, the British, the French, they were actually looking at the individual trees. I would say over 60% of what we were flipping were going to foreign investors, especially the South Americans in the state of Florida. They were probably our biggest buyers at the time. And then now it's funny because those people who bought then, those foreigners, are now selling to the Americans today that we were trying to tell people, just buy this. And now they're paying the premium. Because, my brother has a saying, it says, comfort has a cost attached to it. So the more, the less risk, the more comfortable you are, you're going to have to pay more money for that comfort. The more risk, the less comfortable you are, you'll pay a lot less for that same property because the premium of the comfort is not attached.
That's cool. Comfort has a cost. I like that a lot. Comfort
That's right.
has a cost. I'm going to remember that one because it's true. So true, right? Cap rates are a reflection of that, right? The higher the cap rate, the more risk there is involved with that property. Whereas in lower the cap rate, the more stable that asset usually is.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah. But how do you guys able to? I know you guys had a lot of experience, but in 2008, 2009, I wasn't around there, but I'm guessing it seemed like, how did you guys know that prices were going to, a lot of people thought prices were going to continue to go, or did you just guys know that it was so low that there was no way that it could keep going down?
So remember, we were in a business since 1989. So we had a few years, in us already. I'm not going to lie to you. The way we get over our fear factor is we do a lot of research, and I do a lot of reading. I actually don't read books anymore. I do audio. So when I'm in the car, if I'm doing my errands, walking, running, whatever, I have the audio on. I don't listen to music. I listen to books. So, but if you take the time, look, I'll give you an example, Barry. I may have this here. I was just reading this today. Like this is an article here from the Federal Reserve from the month of September. If you take the time out to read periodicals like this, you could actually anticipate where the market's going and prepare for for when the market is going to drop or when the market's going to go up. So the way we get over our fear factor and why we were not scared to get in back in 2008, 2009, our fear was not that we didn't want to get in. The fear was, where do we get into? Do we get back into the land business? Do we get back into single family homes, multifamily homes, condos? And we started dabbling across the board. And by 2009, we knew exactly where we wanted to be and what area we wanted to concentrate in. And because the more you do, then if you figure it out as you're going. So the fear wasn't when we wanted to get in, or that we were going to lose our money. We had no fear in reference to that. It was just a matter of where we're going to get into the side of the business that's going to optimize the profit margin.
And how did you decide on that? Was it trial and error, or was it
a little bit of trial and error? But in 2008, I would say we spent a year traveling the country, specific areas in the country. A lot of time in Nevada, a lot of time in the state of Florida, a lot of time in the state of Texas, a lot of time in the state of California, and then a lot of time here in New York and New Jersey. And that entire year, we would do our homework, go out to those specific areas to see if what we thought is actually the truth. And then we would come back with even more questions most of the time, do our homework again and go back again. So it took us back in about 2000, the beginning of mid 2009 is when we realized we want to be in Central Florida. And we knew all the reasons why we wanted to be in Central Florida. And that's where we stayed the majority of the time.
What were those reasons? What attracted you to Central Florida?
So Central Florida it's internationally known, right? Because of Walt Disney, right? You say Walt Disney, doesn't matter where you're from, you know where Walt Disney is, right? So that's where Central Florida is, right? And on top of that, the municipality there was taking a lot of time. They had put a lot of time, effort, and energy into trying to diverse their economy away from just the entertainment sector. So, for instance, they were building a medical facility, a medical research facility that was going to bring in about 50,000 jobs in a place called Lake Nona. At the time when you went out to Lake Nona, there was nothing there. I mean, nothing. All they had was plans. But what I did see was you had gas stations that were under construction with 30 pumps. 24 pumps on multiple corners, right? Then you had Walmart starting to build out. Walmart doesn't get it wrong. These gas stations, BP gas station, when they're putting that much money into these places, they don't get it wrong. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars that went into that research. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to follow them, So, we started buying up lots in Lake Nona. We were buying lots there at 5,000, 7,000, and as much as when they got up to 15,000, then we stopped and we held on to them, and then we started selling them at $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, 5-7 years later. So it's all about understanding where to find the information. Again, the Department of Transportation, there is so much information to find out there, and that's all public information. And then if you go to specific townships, they always have council meetings. So the council meetings once a month, they're usually around 6 or 7 o'clock at night. They usually happen sometimes twice a month, but that's where everyone has to go to get their variances. So if you go there, you're going to hear who's going for a variance, what kind of construction they want to build, and why they're going for that variance. You're going to find out what are the roads the county intends on expanding and why they want to expand it. You're going to find out if the hospitals want to expand their facilities. Why do they want to expand it? Where are they getting their money? If the hospitals are expanding their facilities, they're expecting a bigger population. Where's that population going to work? One question leads to another question, but the end result is you find out everything you need to know. Meanwhile, there's people who actually live there that don't even know what's going on, and you're buying the property next to them. They think you're nuts, and 5 years later they want to buy it from you at 10 times what you paid for it. So it's all about educating yourself, and it's all open. It's all there for you to find out. It's for free. It doesn't take much. I actually did a video on that on my YouTube channel. On certain things you should look for that costs absolutely nothing to do.
That's phenomenal. That's so cool. Like I'm learning here, and hopefully everyone else is. Like, there's just stuff to look for, right? And like you said, it's right there in front of your face if you know what to look for, and you can just go out there and find all this information about whatever area you're in, and it'll tell you where to invest almost, right?
It's crazy. It's like I tell everybody, Department of Transportation, that's the best first place you look at. Where did the state already fund the expansion of roads? Where did the state already fund a new exit coming off the main highway? Why do they? Then there's always they're not gonna expand that road if no one's ever gonna use it. There's a reason for it, right? What's the reason? And then you figure out where you invest accordingly.
So cool. What is let's give you a YouTuber plug. What's your YouTube channel called?
USA Land Ventures. You could always on Instagram. You can find me on the Daniel Borrero or USA Land Ventures. Same thing on Facebook. I like Facebook, although I don't have as many followers on Facebook. But I love Facebook because I could actually put articles up there that I find interesting that have to do with the business, whereas the other two platforms don't give you that availability.
Cool. Yeah, everyone should go follow you on all of those. Going back to 1989, you said that. What caused that recession then? And what?
I mean, the banks were just lending money to anyone. They were lending money to people that should not have had money. I knew people that were buying condos pre-construction. The day that they had to close on it because construction was completed, they were selling it to someone else with $40,000-$50,000 more. It was so crazy, it made no sense. And they would always tell me, you got to get into the condos. You got to get into the condos. I'm like, I'm not touching it because it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't feel like it's sitting on a real financial foundation. And they used to think we were nuts. We just stuck to the land business. That's just because the land business, I understand, it makes sense. This doesn't make sense to me. I don't care how much money you're making. The guy, when the music ends, there's going to be a lot of people left without chairs. And that's exactly what happened. The music ended, and there were a lot of people left without chairs.
That was in 2008, or that was in 89?
That was in, I would say, 2001 to 2007. In 2006, you started to see the ripples. 2007 was really, it was in your face. In 2008, it just went bang. It just happened like overnight, done, finished.
But sorry, going back to 1989 when you first started, you said there was a recession then, right? When you first started, what was the cause of that? Was that the savings and loans crisis?
It was the savings and loans, if I remember correctly. But it was just, the United States, we have this cycle. So I got to say, everything I learned in school about economics is out the window with over the last 12 to 14 years. Usually when you're in a recession, property value goes down, interest rates go up. That didn't happen this time around. Interest rates kept low, property value dropped, but then eventually started gradually going up, right? Um, Today, right now, it makes absolutely no sense why the interest rates are still low. I personally think, and I could be wrong, I personally think that's going to make the next recession much more difficult to get out of, and it's going to last a lot longer as a result of that. There's so many indications that we could be here for the next 2 hours talking about that. So what I am saying to you is, yeah, we were in a recession. I've seen a few recessions, but to be honest with you, Barry, I've made my biggest amount of profits during recession time. So I guess what I'm telling everybody here is, when the economy is bad, do not be scared. Be bullish. Be bullish. And when the economy is being bullish, be the bear. You know, take back a little bit. You know, I've always been afraid when everyone's running in, follow. You know, when the sheep are following, I get fearful. I don't follow.
And where do you think we are today? How do you feel about where we are today? I'm not asking for predictions, just your feel of how things are and what you are doing now, because we are in November 13th now, for reference for anyone who's watching this show.
So I personally think we're gonna see a recession. I think we're in a recession in a lot of parts of the country already.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's as deep as a recession as it should have been as a result of the government stimulus packages where they were giving everyone $600 a week. I do believe that this recession is going to be determined by whether DC gets their act together and red and blue could sit and negotiate in good faith. So it all this next recession, it's going to determine on our political leaders whether they could get past their animosity for each other and negotiate on behalf of the American people. That's what's going to. We're going to have a recession. What matters now is how deep of a recession it's going to be. Now, do I think it's going to be the bloodbath that it was in 2008? Absolutely not. The banks are already predicting that recession. For instance, J.P. Morgan, according to the article I just showed you, they just put last quarter they put aside $4.5 billion for bad debt, and the bad debt sectors they're assuming is car loans, credit cards, and mortgages, home mortgages. So, and they're suspected to, and not only J.P. Morgan did that, but there were other banks that have been doing the same thing, not at that level, but they're starting to increase their bad debt account where they're putting money aside for that. So the other thing is, this time around, there's people in homes, but they have more of their own personal money in the house versus where it was in 2008, where they only had 2% or 3%. You know, they really didn't have no money into the house. So it was easier for them to walk away from it. So having said that, I don't think it's going to be the bloodbath that it was then, because the banks have gotten a lot smarter since then on how to protect themselves and hedge themselves in this situation. But there's going to be a lot of opportunities, and for those of us that took the time out to prepare, we're going to be able to take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, and when you say prepare, what does that mean? Get your finances in order, get private money ready to go. Is that
get your finances in order? Get your money ready to go. Your loans. Know where you want to get into the market. Know if you want to get into the multiple family. Know if what's your sector that you're best at. Is it Airbnb? Is it single family homes? Is it condo conversions? Whatever that sector is, make sure you know that sector like the back of your hand. You know, make sure that you are the expert in that sector.
Yeah,
if that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's interesting because I think the real estate market is on fire right now. Here in Vegas, I know it is. Like, prices are just keep going up, multiple offers in any product because there's so low inventory, right? And you speak to normal people who don't know this. I had my hair cut yesterday, and the lady was like, "Oh," because my wife's a real estate agent here, and she was like, "Oh, that's a great industry to be in, like right now, right? It's on fire, right?" I was like, "Yes, but it's not a real reflection of things. It's just so," and she had no idea. And I hear that all the time. And there seems to be everyone I hear that I speak to now, they're becoming a real estate agent, because I think that's,
well, that's what it was before 2008, Barry. It was like, if you breathed, you could sell a house. Right. If you breathed, you could sell land. You know, the guys that really made a lot of money as a real estate agent are the ones that stuck through the bad part. And then when the economy was recovering, they had learned so much as far as how to, do the acquisitions, how to acquire the customer. They took all of that learning knowledge during the hard times that when realtors started coming back into the business, they were so far behind they couldn't catch up to these guys.
Mm.
You know, so the best time to get into the business, me personally, is always during the hard times. You know, that is the best time. That's been my experience.
Yeah, because if you can do it at the worst times, it's when it comes to the good times become so easy then, right, compared to those hard times.
You're gonna be rocking and rolling. Plus, you would have already developed your name. People are gonna know who you are because you were there. You were there through the entire time. You kept. You were the guy as a realtor. You were the guy who was. They saw the billboards. They saw the flyers. They saw the decal on your car. I mean, I don't know how people. I drive around with a decal with the magnets on my car, and I actually slap it on the back of my wife's car when she's not looking because she gets mad at me about it. I buy houses. It's a driving billboard. It's like no matter where you go, people see it. Why not?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. I keep telling my wife I'm going to buy her a shirt that says I'm an agent or something like that. That's about put neon lights or something on it. Everyone sees that.
Why not? Why not?
And I agree with you with the pain that's to come. I can kind of see there's something that it has to happen, right? There's been too much that's gone bad, right? The small businesses that's gone out for good, the unemployment that's at that much higher rate, right? Everything that's happened, people and families have been severely negatively affected, right? Like, for example, we're buying a car now from someone who can't afford the car payments, and he has to pay $5,000 to get out that car payment, and he's selling because of he lost his job to COVID, and that's unfortunate, and we're not taking advantage. We're actually doing him a favor because he needs to get out. But that's just I hear it all the time. A neighbor, he's gone down from 6 days a week to 2 days a week work. Like, this has to have an effect at some point, and it hasn't happened yet, I don't think. But at some point,
and Barry, that's my point. That's why I'm so scared to buy now. So I am buying, but I am buying instead of that 70-30 split. Now it's more like 55-45 split. So after renovation values, I need a 45% margin. Otherwise, I won't touch it because I'm really scared of this market. And the reason I want that 45% margin after renovation value is because the market drops 20%, I'm still safe. Market drops 30%, I'm still safe, right? Otherwise, I just don't touch it. I'll sit back and I'll wait. I don't get. I mean, I'm anxious. I'm not going to lie to you. I get bored because I love the excitement and the energy. If I'm not sweating at my desk, I'm mad. But yeah, you need to be careful right now. Don't this economy and this marketplace is a little scary to me. I understand it, but it's scary to me. So my brother and I, we kind of sensed what was happening in the beginning part of COVID, and we started buying in the southern part of New Jersey, which is 30 to 40 miles away from the city of New York. The property we picked, I'll give you an example of one. I actually did this one on, I put this one on my YouTube from the time that we first went to look at the house, through the renovation process, the sale time, and then the actual closing. So we were thinking under normal circumstances, if I remember correctly, I think we were into the house for 220, 240. I'm going off of my head right now. To make a long story short, we were expecting we were going to make $60,000 to $80,000 on the house profit. We made $135,000. Wow. We had 17 offers on that house. Why? Because by the time we finished the house, and it only took us, we were in and out of the house from the time that we purchased the house to the time that we sold the house, 82 days. During the renovation process, the closing, everything, 82 days. We actually did that entire house, and it was a total gut. We did that house in 30 days. Our guys were there 7 days a week. All right. That house, we made $135,000 profit margin only because of COVID. That's how much the increase of value had gone up because everyone was leaving the city of New York trying to get away from COVID because they were stuck in their apartments all day long. So you're stuck in a 600-700 square foot apartment. You know, you didn't mind doing that before because you had the culture, you had the restaurants, you had the theater, you had the parks, you had everything that New York City had to offer. And now New York City has nothing to offer because it was all closed down. So they wanted something with a yard. Everybody wanted something where they could actually sit outside. And that's what made the prices go up. So we kind of anticipated that. We called it the donut effect, where the middle of the donut was the city and the dough, everything around it was outside the city. So even upstate New York, where they were losing population every year by at least 10%. So there was really nothing there. You could go up there and buy a cabin for 40,000, 50,000, and, you know, put 20, 30 into it and sell it for 200, 220. And, you know, because everybody needed to get out of the city of New York.
Wow. So what are you guys, you said you're waiting and you're trying to, you've changed that split, you know, you guys are looking for bigger margins on your deal. Is there anything else that you guys are currently doing?
Believe it or not, so what we are, so remember, so we have two sides, we have actually three sides of our business. There's three different companies. We have the land side, we have our long-term hold, and then we have our fix and flips, right? So when we're slow on the other two sides, I really concentrate on my long-term, especially trying to take advantage of the 2018 tax codes that came out, because I suspect if Biden gets in, and I'm not red or blue, it doesn't matter to me who gets in, I adjust accordingly. The tax codes are going to change. So I did in the last year, I've been doing a ton of capital improvements on my long-term holds properties because of the tax codes from 2018. They let you depreciate a larger chunk of that the first year than what it's going to revert back to. So I want to take advantage of that. So what we basically do is really fortify our long-term holds properties with, you know, whatever improvements we're going to be doing, whatever minor stuff we always wanted to do but never had time to do, so that when these other two sectors start popping again, I'm not worried about my long-term hold. All the major work is done. It's just a matter of just collecting rent, right? It's just a revolving wheel that's going to be bringing in the cash every month without taking much of our attention. We want to concentrate here where the money's really being made at the moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. And that's so smart. Like, you know, like you said, if Biden takes away the bonus depreciation, you know, that's something you may have, might be work that you need to have done to these rentals. So rather than wait and do a little bit here and a little bit there, you want to get it all done now while you can take advantage of that, because it's going to need to be done at some point anyway.
Exactly. So yeah, exactly. You have the time. You could do it with, you know, and you could get multiple estimates because you have the time to do it with, and you're going to get the tax benefits. You know, so we were putting on brand new roofs. We put in new sidewalks. I put in new storefronts. I put in new entranceways to the buildings, new intercom systems with, you know, the camera system as well. You know, a lot of upgrades as people were moving out, because we did have a lot of move outs. We renovated the older apartments, you know, new kitchen, new baths, new flooring, new windows. We did a lot of renovations in the last 2 years.
Very cool. Very cool. This is fascinating. Everything you talk about is so cool.
Yeah.
As we get towards the end of it, I'd be interested. I know this is maybe a broad question, but maybe you can kind of give it a stab. If you were to start over again, right, 1989, well, it's 2020 now, but all the knowledge you've had since 1989, what would you do differently, or how would you start today?
I would have went and got a mentor. I was fortunate. I was fortunate to make friends with older gentlemen that took a liking to me and guided me when I asked for the advice. But it's nothing like what's available today, where you could actually pay somebody to walk that property with you the first couple of times, where they could hold your hand the first 2 deals or 3 deals. You know, whatever. I didn't pay for the education to a mentor, but I paid it multiple times with mistakes, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And I would have been able to move quicker, faster, if I had somebody telling me everything that I'm actually telling people for free, what you're telling people for free. What we're doing right now, I mean, I don't think people truly understand how fortunate they are having this platform to learn from at a no cost, and the value they're getting is incredible. Yeah.
Well, but I'm sure, yeah, and it's great that the information out there, but there's more real estate investors than there ever has been, right? Not even close, right? When you were starting out, just out of interest, was there a lot of competition back then, or was it for as investors, or was it nowhere near what it is now, you think?
Nowhere near what it is today. It's funny. So, in 1985, I'll give you an example. I always remember this. Freshman year in college, I go to school, living in a dorm, the RAs, residential assistants, they have all the freshmen come out, and you're sitting in the middle of the dormitory area where it's an area to socialize. And they ask people, what's your major? What's this? Do you know what you want to do? And pretty much most people there, they had a major, but didn't really know if that's what they really wanted to do. And when it got to me, I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. They're like, what's that? You're a business major? And I said, well, yeah, I'm a business major, but I want to be self-employed. And and there were people there that were chuckling and giggling, and I quickly found out in college at the time, they weren't teaching us to go work for ourselves. They were teaching us to go work for someone else, So I was fortunate enough to figure that out, and that's why I took more marketing classes and more accounting classes, because I knew that's what I was going to need from the path that I wanted to do in life. And where all my friends got out of school and they went to corporate America, I went and opened up a video store, and they thought I was nuts. But it worked out. It always works out. So yeah, entrepreneurship back in 1989 or 1985 when I graduated from school was not looked upon as it is today. It was a dream. If you said you were an entrepreneur, that means you were broke. Whereas today it's a total different. It's cool to be an entrepreneur, right?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Total different animal today.
Yeah. I'm sure you're glad. I'm sure you're glad. Like, I'm sure you're laughing at your friends who went the corporate route now, right? Yeah, I think you're doing.
Listen, they all did well. We've all done well, thank God. I'm still best friends with all my housemates. We still get together once a year. But I'm not going to kid you. I do better than most. Yes. But that's also because I worked hard. It wasn't, being an entrepreneur, I tell everybody, it's not an easy life. I don't care what business you're in. I mean, would you tell me, because this is what you're doing. Is it easy? Is it easier to be an entrepreneur than or go to work and be told what to do and you're going to be there a certain amount of hours? Tell me. What is your experience?
Everything's on you. As an entrepreneur, everything's on you, right? You go to work for everyone else. Your healthcare is taken care of, your hours, your schedule, everything's taken care of. You're almost a robot at that point. You don't have to think about it, right? What's the saying? An entrepreneur would rather work 80 hours a week for themselves and go work 40 hours for someone else, right?
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. I tell people all the time, if I'm on my deathbed and I'm not wealthy, I know I'll feel good about myself because at least I tried.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's what it comes down to.
Man, that's kind of a great way to wrap up, I think, man. And it's a reflection of who you are, I think. But this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, and I always like to ask some wrestling-related real estate questions to my guests before we sign off for the night. So the first one always catches everyone out, and might catch you out, I don't know, is what would your wrestling name be? If you picked a wrestling name for yourself, what would it be?
Relentless?
Okay, Relentless. Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah.
Mr. Relentless, yeah. With your experience as well, I think that's,
Yeah, I would say Relentless because I could never accept the word no. Yeah.
Awesome.
Just Relentless, definitely. Yeah, thinking about it.
Perfect, Relentless. Every wrestler has a special move. What's your special move in real estate, you think? What's your strength?
Research.
Okay.
The research part. So the research part is what gets you over the fear part.
That's cool.
It's like if you're prepared for that exam, right? If you studied your butt off for that exam, when you walk in there, you're not nervous because you're ready.
Yeah.
Right.
Research. Awesome. That's a definitely a good strength to have. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate investing career, you think? I'm sure there's been a few.
There's been a whole lot. The biggest body slam is taking people at their word, thinking that everyone else would be like I would be, that I keep my word. That's been the biggest body slam. And that's not the case. So, be very diligent and when you shake hands.
Trust but verify, yeah?
That's right.
So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it and how did you overcome it?
Wow, that's a tough question. Actually, it's not a tough question. So I've been on that top rope my entire life. So my entire life I've been the underdog. I had severe learning disabilities. I still do. And my entire life I was considered not to be smart as everyone else in the class because I couldn't read as well. So I've always been on that top rope. So I guess what gets me off that top rope is the fact that it bothers me so much that everyone behind me thinks I can't do it. And that's what makes me do it, if that helps you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Proving people wrong, right?
Oh, I love it. Love it. That was actually, so when I first started my entrepreneurship venture, I always wanted to be able to go back to all my teachers and slap the bank book in front of them and say, this is what I've got. How much do you have? But as time's gone on, when I was able to do that, I no longer had the want to, because it was satisfying enough to know that I could.
Yeah.
That helps.
You knew, right? You knew personally that you've done it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Man, this has been phenomenal. Like, honestly, this has been so cool. I've just really enjoyed this interview. It's just like, and it's not an interview, it's like just a conversation, right? Between people. And hopefully I've been quiet long enough to people to hear you talk, because you talked about so much cool stuff, like so much stuff that people can learn, right? From it's just unbelievable. Thank you so much, man.
No, thank you for having me on, and thank you for letting me share my experience. And again, if your audience wants to get a hold of me, I'll talk to anybody. And you may have to smack me to shut me the hell up when it comes to real estate. So feel free to interrupt.
Well, again, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook at USA Land Ventures. You could find me under my name as well, Daniel Borrero Jr. Or you could find me on Instagram under those two names as well, Daniel Borrero Jr. or USA Land Ventures. And you could find me on YouTube at USA Land Ventures. We started our YouTube channel. We had that about 2 years, never did absolutely nothing with it. But during COVID, of course, everybody's home. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do everything with this time that's been gifted. I'm going to do everything that I've always wanted to do that I never had time to do within the business. And we really launched, we really went deeply into our social media aspect. And we've increased our following base by leaps and bounds. But on top of that, I find myself going more into that side of the business where I'm really enjoying spreading the knowledge. I'm really enjoying it. It's a great time speaking to like people like yourself, right? You and I met as a result of social media. You had Rick Jarman on, right? Rick is the man, right?
So are you. You guys, are awesome. If anyone's ever in a room with you, they need to keep their mouth shut and their ears. Both of you are phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, look, social media is I'm loving it more because not only can I spread my knowledge, but I get to meet so many wonderful people like you, and everyone else that's on here.
Yeah, well, I love it because just for that reason, to meet great people like yourself. So I'm so happy we were able to make this happen.
Yeah.
So happy that anyone who listens to this is going to benefit, no doubt, wherever they are in their real estate investing career. So,
without a doubt, yeah. I mean, look, it's all free. The stuff you're putting out, the people that you're interviewing, I mean, you're putting out great stuff, man. I'm going to thank you actually because you are putting out great content. Great content.
You. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Well, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend, and thanks again, man.
Take care. Good day.
Hey guys, thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate each and every one of you for listening to the show. I have a lot of fun doing these shows, so I appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. As always, will you please like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate? It really helps me grow this channel and get better guests. And also, more importantly, if you can go on the podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a great review. People really look at that when they look at the show and they consider being a guest. So the more I can grow the show, the better I guess I can get on the show, and the more quality I can provide for you guys. So I would really, really appreciate it. And I set a goal of reaching 100 5-star ratings and 100 great reviews. So if you guys can go on there, it would take you maybe 5 minutes total. I would really appreciate that. And then if you've done, reach out to me so I can thank you personally for doing that. But yeah, again, thank you for sticking around for the show, and thank you for being a listener to my show. I really appreciate each and every one of you.